This lesson is going to explain how to write the firewall rules for this system connectivity, which we described in lesson 20. This functional diagram demonstrates the connectivity of that system. And over here on the right, we have the differing firewall philosophies. And we touched on this in the About lesson in the very beginning, but here we're going to talk about it a little bit more. If you notice that we have 4 functions provided by the firewall here. And down here we show the differing ways of write the functionality of the firewall. And we have simplistic and efficient, and you can read the rules yourself, not to read it to you. So this lesson was very difficult to create, and it'll probably be very difficult to understand. So you may have to play this video more than once to get full comprehension. You need to understand this video because it's really the basis for all successful firewall rules. This lesson is a continuation of lesson number 20. Number 20 is where we added a new bridge called Bridge 1 Wi-Fi. We added this new, which is shown here in this picture. So our new network is 75.0 and our default network is 88.0. So we have an iPhone and a laptop, or we have a tablet and a laptop, doesn't matter. There's 2 devices up here. We're going to make sure they can't talk to each other with these rules. And we're also going to make sure that either one of these devices down here will isolate the Wi-Fi users from the clients. Over here we have some information in this text right here between the dashed line at the top and the dashed line at the bottom. It explains this efficient strategy, which is the primary purpose of this lesson, but it also generates the rules you need to support lesson number 20. So after you read these paragraphs right here, we'll move on with the actual rules themselves. So rule number 1, up here, that's your fast track rule. That's a default rule from Microtech. Rule number 2 is where you actually allow things that are established, related, and untracked to be forwarded. So you can't have a new connection item there. Let me explain that. Down here under general, down towards the bottom, you notice we got established, related, and untracked. You can never have new checked here. And this paragraph over here for rule number 2 explains why you wouldn't want that enabled. Rule number 3 drops any rule that's invalid, and that's explained. Invalid is something that was wrong with the packet itself. Rules number 4 and 5, they allow in and out IPsec packets. That's security features 4 and 5. They provide for new IPsec packets to be tracked. Rule number 6, forward client new packets going out the LAN interface, which is now tracked. So let's take a look at that rule for a second. What we're saying is, in general, or forward, people going out the interface list for LAN, which is our Ether port 2, if you remember. And the advanced says is if they're clients, then we're going to accept those packets. So we're going to forward client new packets going out the LAN interface, and then they'll be tracked after they're forwarded on the new packet. Rule number 7. Because of rule number 8 below, this rule will drop any new Wi-Fi user packets going out the WAN to clients before these packets get to rule number 8. This is an exception rule. Don't know why, but this rule works with both the LAN and WAN. I think it's possible that the LAN has access to all router functions and WAN does not. That's a guess on my part. That's a purpose rule number 7. Towards the end, we'll list all these rules if you want to actually see a text version of the rules. Okay, the next rule, number 8, let's go to forward Wi-Fi users, new packets to the LAN interface, which is now tracked. So that lets users do normal functions such as going to the internet. Rule number 9, same as rule 2, which is accepting new input chains to the router admin. So it's the same, it's just allowing things that are established, related, and untracked as inputs to the router. Rule number 10, same as rule 3, and that's where we're going to just drop invalid packets. There's something wrong with the packet. Rule number 11. Rule number 11 is drop Wi-Fi user new input chain to router admin. This rule will not work using interface list equals LAN, but it works with interface list equals WAN. I suspect this is because the interface list for Bridge 1 Wi-Fi is set to WAN. So if we look at that for a moment, you notice we're saying the in interface list is WAN. Well, if we go back here a long time ago when we went to interfaces in the previous lesson, we talked about Bridge 1 Wi-Fi being assigned to WAN as an interface list. And that's what I'm referring to here in this rule number 11. Rule number 12, accept all new ICMP input chain packets to the router. That's for troubleshooting the network. I decided to leave it in. And rule number 13, accept all new local loopback. It's another maintenance function. I was told I should leave it in, so I'll leave it in. So rule number 14 was required when I was trying to do the simplistic strategy. Then I needed this rule number 14. But once I rewrote all my rules using the efficient strategy, rule 14 was no longer required. So it just goes to prove fix the obvious and not so obvious often goes away. Because no one could tell me why that rule was needed. Turns out it isn't needed if you do the right filter rules. Rule number 15, accept all new TCP. That's so that this allows the clients to access the DOH secure DNS server. And rule 16 is the same, but it's for the Wi-Fi users on bridge 1-Wi-Fi. So they can access the same DOH server. Rule 17, only difference is it's UDP protocol instead of TCP protocol in Rule 15. So Rule 17 is UDP protocol, and Rule 18, same thing, UDP protocol for Wi-Fi users. That brings us down to Rule number 19. Rule number 19, allow all new client to router packets to access the router admin. I want the clients to be able to talk to the router because that's where I come in here to maintain the router. So this rule allows that. And then rule 20, drop all packets not expected. This is what makes everything secure because you can't get a new connection if it runs through this whole list and doesn't find a match. It falls out the bottom. But if a new packet does come through here and finds a match, then that new packet, so that session, because of the new packet, now becomes a tracked session and everything goes through Rule 2 or Rule 9 as required. So this covers all the rules. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rules in a text format. So you can go ahead and study these rules, understand looking at this list without opening up each one of them. I'm providing this list of the actual rules so you can scroll down through the rules and read what's going on in each one of these without having to open up each one of them. So that's the purpose of this ruleswin88.rsc, so you can see the details of what each one of these rules is doing. So this lesson is over with. We've tried to demonstrate a proper set of firewall rules that would work with this system configuration and be effective and be efficient. And this truly is advanced firewall filter rule writing. If you understand this particular lesson 21, then you really have a good firm understanding of how the router works. So this concludes this lesson.